Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Today's January 11th, 2023 for the traditional to digital live stream. Continuing with drawing. We're going to be focusing on drawing for the next few streams, probably a lot, honestly, because, we're dealing with the foundations, and this is one foundation that is practiced over and over and over again. You can always do really good for yourself by drawing every single day, drawing something, drawing anything, drawing for any amount of time, just frickin' drawing. It's early here for me, about just a little bit after 3 a.m. in the morning. I get up early though, so it's all good. I go to bed early, but you don't really care about that. So let's get into this. I pulled this photo down from Unsplash, unsplash.com, unsplash.com. It's a wonderful place for getting imagery that you can use as an artist to draw from, especially portraits and figures and things like that. Wonderful resource. There's another one called Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S, that you can use. I always like to say who the photographer is. This is Sarah Noltner, N-O-L-T-N-E-R, Sarah Noltner. So thanks for the photo today, Sarah. I appreciate it. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a drawing practice. We're going to talk about measuring. We're going to talk about ways to get your drawing accurate. And no, we're not going to be doing any kind of tracing or anything like that either. So this whole photo is pretty large, actually. Top to bottom. I'm not going to do the entire photo. What I want to do is just focus on the portrait of this individual that we see here, which will be good. It's great to focus on heads, honestly. Just focus on heads. Draw heads all the time. Wow, look at the quality of this photo. So this is at 100%. This is the kind of photo that we want. We got some good lighting. We have some definite shadow shapes. It's not the best lighting conditions. It'd be nicer if there was a bit more contrast in here so we could tell shadow shapes, but I think there's enough for us to go off of. But the quality's wonderful. If I wanted to get in there and see what the shape of every part of this eye looks like, I could easily do that. But we don't want the whole figure, so what we're going to do is I have this key bind, and this is Control R, the rectangular selection tool. That's what we're going to do. We're going to select just the head, but make sure you get the collar in there too. That's important. We have to see how the head fits on top of the body. After you make a selection, you can go up here to Image and then Trim to Selection. That'll get rid of everything but what you selected. And there you go. The next thing I like to do is, I can't remember. I think it's Control-Alt-C. Resize Canvas. So it's Control-Alt-C, or you can go to Image and then choose Resize Canvas. And what we want to do, we want to create a space to the right of this image so we can draw from. I'm right-handed, so it works for me to be on the right. If you're left-handed, to the left might be good, because I don't want my arm to cover up the reference while I'm drawing. So what I'm going to do is just double this. I'm going to double the width. Well, maybe double it. 6,500. I'm not sure how large this image is, so depending on your computer, it could slow it down a little bit. But we're going to be just working black and white, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. So after you double the width, you want to change your anchor so it's on the left here, so everything flows to the right. You hit OK, and now you have this extra space. I'm going to hit 2 to zoom out to 100%, or to whatever percent, so this whole thing fits. We're not going to work on a blank nothing because there's nothing there. I'm going to hit insert and then move that layer down one. There's a little, these little, I should put on my mouse cursor. I always forget that. A lot of times it gets in the way, especially when I'm trying to draw. Down here below your layers panel, wherever you have your layers panel at, you will see these up and down arrows. You can move layers up and down pretty easily like that. I tend to not even drag them. In Photoshop, there's a lot of dragging of layers, but I don't do that. I just kind of move it. So I'm going to hit F for the fill tool, and then I'm going to select a nice neutral gray that's a bit lighter. And actually, we'll probably put a tone to it, a nice warm tone. Maybe over here in like the yellowy oranges. And then I'm going to move it away from that gray, the edge of that triangle just a bit, so it gets warm. So it's a warm gray. It's still a gray, but it's warm. But keep it down here in the light colors. So that's the color I'm going to pick. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, that's a good color to work from. Good morning, Thinker. Talking about drawing and drawing accuracy today. Going to go through some drawing. Going to have a lot of fun. Now the next thing, the fun thing, is we're going to pick our drawing tool, our brush. And I need to have black, so hit D for black. That always gets you back to black. You know, what's interesting is this brush has texture to it. If I make it really big, you see all this texture. But this image is so massive that at the, you know, the regular size of this brush, the brush looks super tiny. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to image, and then I'm going to scale the image to a new size. It's just a bit too large. So let's take it down to, let's say, 4,000 width. Make sure that the ratio is locked here so we don't mess up the ratio. Hit OK, it'll take a second. And then if I hit 1, is that still too large? I think that's good. Let me see what I can see. Yeah, that's way too large still. I need to be able to see everything. Even on a, you know, I have a 24-inch XP pen. And it's still hard to see. So let's go down another 1,000. 3,000. Yeah, here we go. So I got the pencil I want to use. I picked it. I'm going to stick with it. And for the most part, I'm just going to stay in this mode and just start drawing. I'm going to remove my mouse highlighter though, so that it doesn't get in my way and it doesn't get in your way, so you're not seeing what I'm trying to draw. Oh, you won't be able to attend tomorrow? No worries. That's all good. Whenever you can show up, that's totally cool. It'll be recorded, so if you want to watch it anytime. Doing a lot of drawing stuff, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to stay in this kind of zoomed out mode and just draw like this. The one thing I do want to do is I want to save this. So I'm going to hit save. It's going to ask me about a lot of quality things, and I think all this is good. Actually, I don't want to save it as a JPEG. I want to hold Control Shift and hit S, and then we're going to save as. I was going to do a figure today, but these figures are from ArtStation and I can't share those, so I'm not going to do that. So I want to save this as a Krita document so you can get it later. You can download all of the materials and resources for this course on my Gumroad. It costs a little bit of money, but I'll give you a discount later. Here's a question. Have you ever used chromatic black oil paint? You know, I've seen it where it's actually an interesting it's very it's It's a great selling point, I'd have to say. I never used it. I don't even use black when I paint. I have some tutorials coming out, and there's 3 colors that I use that make a chromatic black, and actually I'm going to start using that terminology. There's these 3 colors that you can use that will give you the dark, like a really dark color. Like if I was painting this, oops, I can't see behind the image. The dark of his glasses, like the rim of his glasses. I would mix up these 3 colors. I would get a very black color. It would be almost as dark as black, just really close. But you could use those 3 colors to adjust this black in any way you want. So that's going to be burnt umber. And you may already know this thinker. Oh, it's supposed to be a transparent black. This is semi-transparent, what I'm going to give you right here. Burnt umber, ultramarine blue, ultra, not ultra. Ultramarine blue and alizarin. I have no idea how to spell alizarin. Permanent. So those 3 colors, and you can adjust, you know, how much of each you want. Maybe a bit more ultramarine for a bluish cast, or a bit more burnt umber for a darker orange, or if you want to go for a cool red, a bit more alizarin permanent. You mess with those, mix them in oil, and I tell you, it's super black. It's wonderful, and you can play around within it. It will be semi-transparent, not completely transparent. I'd have to look into more of the chromatic black to see, you know, its advantages. Wow, that cut through everything. I have to Control Z this. Because you know what I didn't do? I didn't create a layer all the way back. Oops. What size are we at now? I think I Control Z'd all the way back to... Wow. It's good to know that that's there. So one of the issues that I always have is forgetting to create that layer to draw on. Don't forget that. As a traditional artist, it's one of those things where it's like, tend to always forget it. Okay, let's get into the drawing. So when you're a traditional artist, the first thing that you do, like when you're drawing from a reference or you're drawing from a real life object, there's a lot of measuring that's involved. And it's kind of a tool that you can get stuck on, okay? And when I say measuring, and let me move this layer above so that I can draw over the this guy here. When I say measuring, it's kind of like if this person was really far away, you would want to measure the height of the head, like from the chin, you know, to the top of the head. And you would do that by kind of holding your pencil up to the head in some way, and then try and like compare it to what you already have on your drawing. But that's after you actually have something on your drawing. Let's get into that first. So if I'm drawing anything, just, you know, out of the blue, no grid, no nothing. We won't be working with grids today. Although on most of my oil paintings, I use some kind of grid to help the drawing, but not to transfer directly. For any kind of drawing, I will start out very lightly and just throw in some ideas, okay? And just kind of throw in a shape. This is where I would start with. What I'm going to do is just get something on the canvas, something down. Not worrying about how accurate it will be, not worrying about where things are exactly. Just getting, you know, some kind of reference to work from. And, you know, from our last live stream, I was talking about using your whole arm, right? That's what I'm doing right now. I'm using my entire arm to draw this. If you don't have a huge, 24-inch digital whatever to draw from, no problem. Just do your best you can. If you're on an iPad, it should be just fine. Try and keep, maybe your reference is on a different monitor or something. Maybe your reference is a photo. Maybe your reference is a figure and you're in life drawing. That would be good too. So you get something down, okay? Because you have to have something to work from. And if I have, this kind of start going, what I can do is determine some unit of measure. What is my unit of measure? So within your own world of drawing, you can create any unit you want, whatever you would call it, this. And that unit could be the height of the head, from here all the way down to here. That could be your unit that you work with. If you're working with a whole figure, that would work. If you're not working with a whole figure, if you're working just with the head, your unit would be smaller. It could be, something like this, from there to there. But defining your unit of measurement is really important, because right now I have nothing to go off here except for, just looking at my reference. If I can't touch this reference, I can't, bring any digital things over to it. I can't do anything with it. Not only that, what if I want this head to be smaller instead of it being the same size that I'm working from? And this is an advantage here. I want the top of this head to match the top of the head on the right, and the bottom to match the bottom on the right. That's already a measurement. But what if I'm working with the head in this size? Okay. What you're going to run into is this kind of difference of measurement, because one eye width over here is not going to work within a smaller head. That's not going to work at all. I'm making things a little bit easier on myself today by keeping it exactly what is on the left. So trying to go for the same size. And this is another thing that's important. When you're the journey of an artist doesn't go from zero to master in one day. There's all those steps, and we talked about this once before. So don't try and do a master drawing when you first start out, or even when you're halfway through your journey, 5 years into it. Make things a little bit easier for yourself. Understand where you are in your current skill level, and then say, okay, let's put in my regular structure so that I can work from this a little bit better, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create my unit of measure, and I'm going to do that by eyeballing. What I mean by eyeballing, I'm going to be drawing an eyeball, and I'm going to be trying to get the size the same as what I'm seeing over here. And I'm focusing down on one thing, okay? Which is going to be the eye. It's going to be a good unit of measure for me. And I'm going to get a few things in here. So I'm drawing this person's right eye, so the eye on the left, that's their right. It's on our left. And what I'm doing is, you're probably seeing that, and I'm not trying to get all these curved lines anywhere. What I'm doing is, I'm doing a lot of straight lines. We as humans find it a lot easier to draw and measure geometric forms. So if we can transfer what we're seeing into a geometric kind of idea, the measurements is going to be a lot easier. So always start out with these kind of straight lines everywhere. Drawing accuracy and getting your drawing accurate is made up of two things: angles, So, and this is all that you'll have to deal with. Angles and distances. That's it. To get your drawing, nothing else. So you look at the angle of this forehead up here, where's that at? You look at how it changes here, how it changes there, how it changes there. You're looking at all these angles, okay? Those are the angles that we're looking at. You look at the major angles, like from tear duct to tear duct on either side of the eye, that angle, which will be repeated through the rest of the head, same angle, all the way down, everywhere. That angle will always be the same. It's perspective. That's why I like the glasses. The glasses are nice because you get that same angle. The glasses and things like that help you with your drawing, believe me. So that you'll get the angles, and then you'll have to figure out distances, like how wide is it from here to here, or the middle of the glasses to there, these distances. You get those down, and those are all the things you need to worry about, really. Okay, so I have an eye in here. Now what I can do is several things. If I'm a traditional artist, and I've done this, I'm working analog, and I don't care. It's whatever can get me as accurate as possible. I can take my stylus, like what I would do is I would literally take my stylus. I'm going to draw my stylus over this eye, which is, it's going to be a black stylus. And I would lay it over this eye here and put my thumb someplace where it marks off the edge of the stylus, right? And then I would take that little measurement and move it over, and I'm going to do it right now. I would take that little measurement and move it over here, But first, I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to get something that we're going to say is correct on this drawing. So, what is correct? And the very first thing that you have within a drawing, you can define as being correct. So, for example, let's say that and this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to define the distance between the edge of this, and you know what I can do? I'm going to do this. I'm going to switch my background color to a red, and then when I hit X, it can switch from black to red really quickly. That way you can see what I'm illustrating on the left-hand side. So I'm at red right now. I'll hit X, I'll go back to black, and then red. So what I want to do is look at the two distances here, or this distance here, okay? Which is a small distance. I like starting small, okay? I'm not going to say this distance is my correct distance, because there's so much just stuff within inside here that you would have to figure out. And then after all that, you're going to go, oh, the distance that I said is correct is actually wrong. So start small on this, but define what you think is correct. So I'm looking at this distance. This is where the corner of the eye, probably a lot closer. Let's not even take into the shadow of that eye. The outside corner of that eye meets the skull. And I'm going to say it is, on my drawing, it's this width. Okay? That is correct for me. And because I've defined that as being correct, I can judge everything else against it. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's put it into practice. So if I've already had that distance put into place, and I know it starts there, or at least the right side of it's there, and the end of this eye is underneath the glasses, I'm going to measure this distance here with my stylus by taking my stylus and actually putting it right on top of my screen and then marking off that point. Okay? It's a very analog way of doing this. Is it wrong? Heck no, it's not wrong. If it gets you to drawing things correctly or accurately, let's do it, right? And now as I do this, I see that this eye needs to be a bit wider. So it ends there, okay? Probably not going to get much of a drawing done today because of all that I'm talking about. So I have the width of my eye. And as you can, the one thing I will say is that I'm looking at those angles too. I'm keeping that angle. I'm not drawing this straight down because that's not the way that the skull goes. The skull goes like that in this section. So always thinking about that angle. We're back over here. Angles, distances. Angles and distances. It's all you need to care about. You can get to that in a multitude of ways. Now that I have the width of my eye, now because I want it to look exactly like my photo here, and in the same position, and I can see right away that where this is on the horizontal line doesn't match up to the right. Okay, easiest way to do that is Shift B, and I can draw this line straight across, and we can see it needs to go a bit down. But we're going to try not to get into that. Okay, we're going to try and improve our own drawing skills through observation, because that's what's really important, to be able to observe it. There's always a point where you're just going to go, I hope that's correct. Okay, that's my best guess, and this is what we're going to get to. So I'm going to hit my S key for the free selection tool and select that eye, hit T, and then actually I'm going to move the whole skull part as well, because remember what we called as right is right there as well, and that needs to move down. So this whole section, this is going to look like a very disjointed kind of weird drawing, but I definitely want to take advantage of this digital medium. You can also, on Krita, you can go up here to your rulers. If you don't have rulers on, I believe it's, I don't think there's a key binding for it. You would have to go into View, I think it is, and Show Rulers. Yeah, View and Show Rulers. So if you have rulers enabled, you can go up here, put your cursor on top of it, and then click and drag down. And then you can see where you're at on that. And I can see that I need to come down a bit more. So we're going to cheat there. Hit T. Okay, no more cheating. There we go. Right there. Back to my brush. So I have the placement of this eye. I'm going to make my pencil a bit bigger, hit E to make it an eraser, and lightly kind of erase everything around it, because what I put down before was wrong. And that's totally okay. I'm going to leave everything else because it's not a big deal. So we have our unit of measure. We have what is correct. We've done a lot of measuring to this. We know that this eye meets our standards where it's supposed to be right now. I mean, if I wanted to, I could, hit T and drag this whole thing on top and really check it, right? But let's not do that. Even though I just did it. I didn't see it, I swear. But okay, so we have our unit of measure. What I mean by that is anytime we need to check something, we could look at maybe this distance here, from the edge of the head all the way to the tear duct in the eye. To measure anything else, we could use just the width of the eye, which we'll probably use in a lot of ways. We could use the height of the eye, which is one thing I didn't measure, so I'm going to put my stylus over the height of the eye. Yeah, that's good, actually. I got that right on. And the reason why I like using my stylus is because it's just quick. I don't know, just moving things back and forth, getting some accuracy down on that. The one thing I did see is that, and let's get into this. This is actually going to be helpful. Yeah. Oops. Don't hit Control X, you'll delete everything. Control Z is what you want. Oh no, did I just change? Yeah, I changed my background color to a different color. Gotta hit X, not D. So D gets you to black, X switches back and forth. So black, red. Okay. Let's do a bit more drawing first before I get into this. So I'm looking at the shadows within this eye, the eyelid. That's all kind of shadowed out. And then the iris and pupil. How the sclera is really white. Just going to start shading as I go. A lot of times I like shading as I go. Sometimes I'll work up the whole drawing. This is a technique kind of that comes from Richard Schmid, where you finish the drawing in each section as you're working. That way you could stop at any time and you kind of have a finished drawing. You could say, oh, I was just drawing that. You know, I'm working on drawing this head, but that part of the eye is completely done and I'm happy with it. And I could probably leave it there. If I got really busy doing chores or something, didn't need to come back to it. Not a big deal. Now, you know, I'm not doing any measuring except for in my head. And that's what I want to talk about in a second. There's something that you can do, that you can train your eye and your brain to do that will help out your drawing accuracy tremendously. And how do you train anything? How do you get better at anything? Practice. It's very simple. Anything that you do on the planet, no matter what, to get better at it, you just practice. Very simple. Actually, I'd probably move the pupil over a bit because the glasses are like right here. At least that's my guess on that. So what can you do to improve your drawing accuracy tremendously? Let me get the inside of these glasses in. And, you know, a lot of times this is what you'll see. You know, someone that's been drawing for years and years and years, they'll just come out with, I mean, I'm amazed by so many artists out there. They just put it down and you're like, wow, that's just dead on. How did you get that just perfect? I mean, practice, you know. They're not telling you that, oh, there's a lot of 10 years behind every stroke that I'm making here. And for me, that's what it is 10 years of every single day showing up and doing art, having fun, you know? Okay, so one thing that you will improve, I can see that those glasses are a bit far out now. One thing that will help you improve tremendously is getting used to horizontals and verticals. Now I'm going to switch to my, how did they get changed to white? Did I hit D again? Heck, let's keep it on white. It obviously wants to be white. All right, we can see the white really well on everything else. Anyways, horizontals and verticals, okay? I kind of used it when we were checking where that eye was on the page. Was it in the correct spot? And you can do that by hitting Shift B, which is, you know, our keybinds for the line tool. And let's say we're looking at the corner of the brow here. Draw a line, just hold it, then hit Shift, you'll get a straight line. And look at that, it points right at the brow that I have, okay? I know that in a vertical, up and down, that's in the right place. What about the corner of this eye? Let's try that. Bam, got that on, right? So that's pretty good. Now, the other thing I'll do is, let's say from the corner of the brow, I draw a line straight down. And I could see that the cheek there doesn't quite touch it. It's close, but not quite. What about on my drawing? Ooh, look. Look at the distance difference there, okay? I didn't get that right, and that's okay, not a big deal. But what you're constantly doing as you're drawing is you're thinking of horizontals and verticals. When I was drawing the tip of this nose where it ended, I was thinking, where does that end on the outside of the pupil? Ooh, I was a bit off. It needs to come out a bit. Just a tiny bit. I drew that in my head, just like that vertical, okay? And I'm doing a lot of this against what we defined as correct. We defined this eye, this shape, and out here as the one thing that we know is pretty darn close, okay? The one thing I didn't really check is, the width of this whole eye here. I didn't check that, so maybe that's a little bit off. But what you can also do is you drop a vertical, okay? So let's say from what we measured before, which were these distances, the center is right there. Oh, well, that hits perfectly on my the end of that, not pupil, the color of the eye. I forget what that's called. So the center is there. It could come out a bit. So definitely. So let me get rid of the whites. Hit D for black. And I'll bring that out. And it's really dark in there, so I'll keep it dark. That's probably too dark, but it's okay. I can lighten it up later. It's the smaller distances that are easier to judge, honestly. When you get down into, maybe the width of the sclera, the white part of the eye, I mean, you can kind of see that a lot easier. But trying to judge, the width of the entire glasses or the top of the head to the bottom of the head is very difficult. And you're probably looking at this drawing going, hey, Chris, man, every single time I see someone drawing something, they start in this kind of broad manner. So, if most people would draw this head, they'd probably start with, a Loomis circle for the cranium, and then do, this ellipse for the side of the head, and then drop a vertical down for that, and then get into all of these and get the general structure. And it's all about the general structure for everything. And that's good. But you're dealing with these really big, huge, large lines. There's so much room for incorrectness there. What I like to do, and this is honestly is just me on this, is I work from small. Let me change that back to white. I work from a small area, and then I build upon it. Let's do that. It's kind of like a puzzle pieces. So I defined what I think is correct, on my drawing, not here, but on my drawing I defined that. Then I actually measured this, got that, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's just a small jump up. From there, let me measure maybe the height of the eye against this distance. And maybe, I could see that the height of the eye, down to those glasses, would be a little bit higher than the eye, so I could bring that down. And I'm building like puzzle pieces away from that. Finding this distance, finding that distance, working with these kind of little puzzles. And I'll continue to build things off of this eye, off of that initial measurement. And the more we get correct from that, in these little small pieces, we have larger sections to work from. We have larger measurements that are correct. I hope that made sense. Let me try again on that, because I think that it's a really good point to define this way of working. I don't see it a lot anywhere. Maybe it's really difficult for a lot of people, but it's something that has always been really successful for me. So we have our initial definition of what is correct, that width there. Then we did some some direct measurement to get the width of the eye as well. What we've just established there is a larger section that is correct. Okay, so this is another piece of measurement. So if I wanted to, I could take that little piece, I mean, not literally, and I have this kind of unit of measure that I could use in different places. Okay, and we did that by just, you know, building away from what we defined as correct in little small sections. So as I do that, I could put down the top and the bottom of the eye, and now I have a height that I can work with. And then I measure that and I think, okay, is the distance between the top of the eye and the top of the rim of these glasses the same as the height of the eye? And no, it's a little bit less. Okay, so I'll put that down. And then we'll do the bottom of the glasses. Okay, now this distance is a bit more than the height of the eye. Okay, fine, I can put that down. Now I have a larger section that I know is correct. Okay, vertically. And this is how I'm working. This is how I continue to work. It's building puzzle pieces all over. But what really is necessary here is focus. This doesn't work too well if you're distracted by a live stream. Just kidding. If you're distracted by, like, you know, the cat just puked on the floor or something, you know, it's going to pull you away from this focus you need to see if this is correct. So let's do a bit of correction. So I'm going to put my stylus on this eye, the width of the eye, which is our initial measurement. And I'm going to see how far. So what I observed is from here to here is the same as this width as well. Well, just about in there. So we have this width, and then that's divided in half. And whenever we deal with whole numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, like this distance, and we have those, and we could, let's say it's the same as here. It's probably not. Those are really easy. A lot of times it's going to be, you know, maybe the distance we measure is like something like that, and it's just a tiny bit off, and we have to guess about it. But then a lot of times you can cut this measurement in half, and you can deal with a halves as well. And that's what I did. So I have this eye, and I need to double the eye to get to the outside of the glasses, basically. And that's pretty good, actually. What I just measured with my stylus, it's right there. Now the height of the eye, I know that the glasses go down further than the height of the eye. So, and when you work this way as well, as I do that, I see that something's off because it didn't really work. Oh, it's just a little bit, like the distance from the bottom of the eyelid to the bottom of those glasses on that side is just a little bit greater. Okay, so not so much. So going about that way. And then I'm looking at the angle of the glasses, and I'm going to put that down. Now, one thing we did measure with our verticals is we saw that if I dropped a vertical down here, that the cheek would come out to about right there. So I needed to bring the cheek out a bit further. Let's continue to work in straight lines right now. You can always soften out those straight lines and corners later. In fact, it's almost like the human brain judges, when someone else is looking at this, they'll judge the straight lines as being more accurate than the curved lines. Oh, what an accurate drawing. Could be way off from the actual curves of, you know, maybe these glasses or the edge of the head, but it always looks better. which is interesting, or looks accurate, not better. So I brought those glasses down just a bit because I looked at the in-between distance between the top of the eye and this like intersection in there, the top eyelid, and it was a bit smaller than what I had. Those little small distances are the easiest to judge. Not getting through a lot of this drawing because I'm explaining so much. I do this because so often you'll see artists that will just draw, and it's just absolutely fantastic what they're doing. But they're really quiet. And you're just listening to music. And you're like, come on, dude, talk. I mean, how did you get that so accurate? Like, what happened? What did you do? What were you thinking? So maybe I go overboard with too much talking. Looking at positive and negative space here, look at this arrow that was made. And then look at this arrow. If you simplify those shapes, I mean, looking right now, hopefully you can see this. My arrow is a lot larger than the arrow on the left, right? So what's the problem there? What is wrong? What is not working? So I'm going to throw my stylus on top of the pen, or the pen tablet, and I'm going to measure from here to here. Okay. And let's see if that's the same. No, it's not. My glasses are too far out. They need to end like right there. So that means everything else needs to come in. All right, cool. Am I still in white? No. Yeah, now I'm on white. Boy, not seeing my palette is very difficult to understand where I'm at. It's kind of like a challenge for me, and a challenge beyond just drawing and on live stream and not getting distracted. Just an anecdote here from my life. It's kind of funny. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Well, I think it's funny. So years ago, I would think that most artists start out like this. I'm not a, perfect individual that, is different from anyone else on the planet in some cases. When we start out, we're kind of like, oh, don't look at what I'm drawing because we're so afraid it's bad, So I remember I always used to draw and cover up my drawing while I'm drawing. Like, oh no, don't look until I'm done. And then even after I was done, I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to show anybody because there's judgment there. You're opening yourself up for judgment, right? And we don't like that judgment. We're pretty fragile at that point. We don't want to be judged. Don't judge me. Right? And I was still at that point when I was about, 20 something years old. I can't remember. Huh? 4 o'clock, that's 1 hour into the stream. So continue my story real quick. So I still wanted to cover up my drawing, but I needed to get a job. And I wanted to get a job doing something in art. And we were living in Florida at the time. And if you know anything about Florida, Disney, Universal, SeaWorld, all these huge parks are out there. And it's all about working for the parks. And they have all these jobs, these kind of entertainment type jobs for artists and everybody. Problem with those glasses. Still. Yeah, I brought it way too far in. This is really confusing me as I get a disjointed story out here. So I ended up getting a job as a caricature artist. And before that job, I didn't want anybody to look at what I was actually drawing. Ever. Like, don't look at my what I'm doing. Now, if you know anything about caricature art, or if you've ever gone to a park, a fair, or something in the States, or anywhere on the planet, there's some person, and they're sitting out there in the middle of a street, or a walkway, or a sidewalk, and they have all their art displayed, and they're like, yeah, sit your kids down, and I'll draw them. I'll make funny faces of them. And you're out in the open, just drawing people. Not only that, you're making fun of their family members. And they're right over your shoulder. And then add on to the fact that, that there's about 10 million people walking down that sidewalk at the same time because you're inside of a park. And so the first day was like, I had some training. They're like, here's how to, really kind of render a caricature, blah, blah, blah. This is what you do. Did some testing, worked from other things. And they're like, yeah, you're ready. Just start drawing. Here, draw this person. And they're, draw this child and make fun of them in front of their family, right? While a million people are walking by. Oh my gosh, it was so nervous. But after a week of that, just a week, I mean, I was yelling and screaming at people saying, hey, come get your drawing done. Yeah, I'll draw you. Yeah, you got a funny face. I'll draw you too. I don't really care. Look at my drawing. Look how bad this drawing is. If you ever want to get over that fear of drawing in public, be a caricature artist. It can help you out a lot. So yeah, making mistakes in public, drawing something that looks terrible, not a problem now. And then you add on to that, decades of just making bad art and understanding that that's what has to happen in order to get better. It's not the perfect art, it's not the good art that makes you better, it's the bad art. And recognizing why it's bad. Alright, that's going to be the end of this stream. We didn't get very far. We talked about a lot of things. Let me review. Define your unit of measure first. Well, get started first. Just start drawing with something. And then hone down into a smaller area and say, okay, this little section is right. And then start measuring from that. When you're measuring, when you're checking accuracy, you're dealing with only two things: angles and distances. The angle of the brow and the distance from the brow to the hairline. Angle and distance. That's all you deal with. And you can use things like horizontals. You can draw those horizontals on your screen, if you're super novice at it, and we all are in a lot of ways every day. And you can draw these horizontals or verticals. You could do it, like I showed with the straight line. Like, is that eye directly on? Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty close enough, right? Drawing verticals down. So, did I get that cheek right this time? Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good, as far as where it comes out to. And just kind of working up in these blocks, from small to large. And this is a preference of mine, by the way. Many artists work in broad strokes and then kind of simplify from there. I see lots of artists, we'll probably go over this kind of way of working. Let's change this back to white. Where they would do something like just block out this whole kind of mask within the eye and maybe the underneath the nose, which that was very inaccurate because my brush was so large. The triangle under the nose, throw the mouth down. Shape of the head, you know, this is this broad way of working, right? And the colors would be flipped, like that would be all the dark color. You know, this triangle under the chin, you know, working in these like kind of value areas. And then if it's off in some way, like maybe, you know, the side of the head is off, the top of the head is off on their drawing, they could just easily switch to an eraser and carve into it. Another way of doing it. And I can hit S to make a selection, hit delete to get rid of it. Let me save this. Okay, tomorrow we'll probably continue on with this, and I'm going to try and get a little bit more accurate. Not accurate, because we're dealing with accuracy. I'm going to try and get a bit more on topic, like have specific points to talk about and stick to. I actually wrote down specific points to talk about, but I just went off and just started kind of blabbering about drawing. So we'll continue with this drawing and continue to work it up, and I'll try and be a bit more concise with how I'm speaking about this, because I'm learning as you're learning. Awesome. If you want the resources for this course on my Gumroad, which is linked into the video, go to that link and you can use CB50 off to get 50% off. There you go. And I will see you tomorrow. Hey, Alex, thank you very, very much. Thanks, Amber, for showing up as well. Thank you for showing up. See you guys tomorrow.